Tokyo. November 19, 2018, a private jet lands at Haneda Airport under a cold grey sky. Minutes later, flashing police lights cut through the darkness. Reporters swarm the runway as Japan's most celebrated businessman, Carlos Ghosn, is taken into custody. The man who saved Nissan, the man who led Renault, the man who once ruled 2 continents of the automotive world, now handcuffed and silent. For 2 decades, they called him the cost killer. He rescued Nissan from bankruptcy, closed failing factories, cut billions in debt, and turned an aging Japanese giant into a global force. He was the savior of the car industry, the first foreign CEO to become a national icon in Japan. But behind the legend was something darker: pride, ambition, and the growing resentment of those who believed he had gone too far. Ghosn was not a typical executive. He was bold, flamboyant, and unafraid to challenge Japan's quiet corporate hierarchy. He didn't whisper, he commanded, and he didn't blend in, he stood above. In 2016, he threw himself a lavish masquerade ball at the Palace of Versailles, chandeliers glimmering, violins playing, gold reflections dancing across champagne glasses. Officially, it was a celebration of the Renault-Nissan alliance. Unofficially, it looked like a coronation. The Japanese media called it excessive. The board called it embarrassing. But for Ghosn, it was victory. Proof that he had conquered not just companies, but cultures. Then in 2018, everything came crashing down. Japanese prosecutors accused him of underreporting $80 million in income and using company funds for personal luxuries, houses in Paris, Rio, and Beirut, a corporate jet, a Versailles party, a life built on blurred lines between business and pleasure. The charges were stunning. The headlines were merciless. Yet Ghosn refused to bend. He claimed it was all a coup d'etat, a corporate ambush by Nissan executives terrified of his plan to merge Nissan and Renault into a single powerhouse. He said Japan's establishment could never allow a foreigner to control one of its crown jewels. In his words, "I was betrayed by the people I trusted most." In Japan, loyalty is sacred, hierarchy is law, and humility is expected. Ghosn violated them all. He had become too powerful, too foreign, too independent, and for that, he would pay the price. From the Palace of Versailles to a 6x8 detention cell, the fall was absolute. For 130 days, Carlos Ghosn lived alone in solitary confinement. No phone, no internet, no sunlight, only a bare wall and a metal toilet. Japan's legal system is known as hostage justice. Confess and you might go home. Stay silent and you rot. Ghosn stayed silent. He refused to sign anything, refused to plead, refused to break. Prosecutors visited daily. Lights never turned off. Even sleep became a negotiation. When bail finally arrived, it came with invisible chains. He was under constant surveillance, followed everywhere by cameras and guards. He was forbidden to contact his wife, Carol, forbidden to use the internet freely, forbidden to step outside the narrow path Japan allowed him. The government called it security. He called it humiliation. Carol Ghosn stood before cameras in Paris, trembling, pleading for help. "They are breaking him," she said. "He's isolated, alone, and forbidden to speak to me." For Ghosn, the silence became unbearable, and within that silence, the idea of escape was born. Late 2019, Ghosn's patience snapped. If Japan's system would never allow him freedom, he would take it himself. In the shadows, he met a man named Michael Taylor, a former US Green Beret and private security specialist. Taylor had spent decades planning covert extractions from war zones. Now, he was planning one from Tokyo. Together, they crafted a plan that defied logic. They studied airport layouts, private jet protocols, and baggage inspection loopholes. And they found a critical flaw. Japan's airports didn't scan oversized cargo. If Ghosn could hide inside something big enough, he could be wheeled straight onto a plane without anyone checking inside. The plan was insane, dangerous, but genius. December 29th, 2019. A cold winter evening in Tokyo. Ghosn put on a cap and surgical mask, telling guards he was going for a walk. He boarded the bullet train to Osaka, unnoticed, unguarded. Waiting there was Taylor and his son Peter, along with a large black road case designed for concert audio equipment. Reinforced wood, steel handles, tiny air holes drilled at the bottom. Inside a hotel room, Ghosn took one last breath of free air. He stepped into the box, knees tucked to his chest. The lid closed, the locks clicked. Darkness swallowed him whole. Two men dressed as musicians rolled the heavy case down the hall, past curious guests, past hotel staff, into a waiting van. Surveillance cameras caught everything, but no one looked closely. The van drove to Kansai International Airport, where the team's private jet awaited. At 10:30 p.m., the case was loaded into the cargo bay. Customs officers walked by, clipboard in hand. The case was too large to fit through the scanner, and so, by Japanese regulation, it was never opened. At 11:10 p.m., the jet roared down the runway. The wheels lifted, and Carlos Ghosn, once the most famous executive in Asia, vanished into the night sky. By morning, the headlines erupted. Carlos Ghosn missing. Nissan's former CEO disappears. Japan was stunned. The Tokyo prosecutor's office went into overdrive. The world demanded answers. And then, from Beirut, came the message, "I am here, I am free." Ghosn had landed in Lebanon, the country of his childhood, a nation with no extradition treaty with Japan. He was untouchable. On January 8, 2020, the world watched as Ghosn stepped onto a stage in Beirut, surrounded by cameras. Calm, composed, defiant. "I did not escape justice," he said. "I escaped injustice." To some, he was a hero, a symbol of defiance against Japan's rigid legal system. To others, he was a coward, a fugitive billionaire running from accountability. Interpol issued a red notice. His co-conspirators were arrested. The Taylors were extradited to Japan. Ghosn's assets were seized. His legacy burned. Renault and Nissan's partnership fractured beyond repair. Boardrooms that once celebrated him now erased his name. From Tokyo to Paris, Carlos Ghosn became shorthand for betrayal. Yet in Lebanon, he thrived. He gave interviews, taught business courses, and told his story over and over again. "I was a victim of corporate treachery and political manipulation." He became both philosopher and pariah. Still, he could never leave Lebanon. Step outside its borders, and he'd be arrested. His world, once global, had shrunk to a few city blocks, and somewhere in a storage unit, the box that freed him still sits, black, silent, and unchanged. A symbol of desperation and genius, arrogance and defiance. He built an empire. He lost it all, and then he fit his entire life into a box. Was Carlos Ghosn a visionary who outsmarted a corrupt system, or a billionaire who refused to face justice? Maybe both. In Japan, he's a criminal. In Lebanon, a survivor. To the world, a legend. The man who escaped in a box. And that's where his story leaves us. Between brilliance and betrayal, truth and myth. This is Truvo, where we uncover the stories they tried to hide, the scandals, the crimes, and the empires that fell from grace. If you found this story as unbelievable as we did, hit subscribe right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next corporate crime, financial cover-up, or scandal that shook the world. Because here at Truvo, we don't just tell stories, we dig for the truth buried underneath them. Thank you for watching. I'm your narrator, and this has been Carlos Ghosn, the man who escaped in a box. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep watching Truvo. where every empire leaves a crime behind.